Basic bodice, shoulder dart. Find the apex. Make sure you're on it. Not above it, not below it. Match the folded center front to the center front. Halfway pin between bust level and neck. Halfway pin between bust level and waist. When it's pinned correctly, there should be a gap, the space. When it's pinned correctly, the bust level line here should point across, straight across to the other side, to the apex. Once that's in place, then go on. Your first job is to keep the bust level parallel to the floor. That's your big job. You've got +1/8 here, so that needs to be matched at your side seam, the real side seam. All right, and then you fill with pins. You got to have at least 2 between the apex and the side. Again, +1/8 is at the side that you're using. Check it from a distance because you can't see. I think I'm going down slightly. That line has to be straight before you go on. We're doing the shoulder dart bodice, and that requires it to be a balanced bodice, right? Which means later that the back and the front have to be at the same angle on the side seam. Okay, once this is straight, you can put a couple of opposite pins on the bust level line to hold it so you don't pull it down as you go to the next steps. Take the PPGL straight down to the waist and take a pinch of ease at the waist and pin it at the waist seam. Pinch of ease is 1/16 on the double, tiny. And then pin it at the bottom of the waist tape. You're going to be marking the waist at the bottom or the middle of the waist tape. No other options, okay? Once you've got it there and it looks straight to your eye, then take a scissor and cut up on the PPGL line because this has to be able to release over her hip. It has to spread, okay? Once that's done, then you come and you pin at the waistline and center front. And you can pin at the side seam at the waist. And then the balance that's left over here becomes the waist dart. The apex grain line is in the center of that waist dart. So when you fold it, when you pin it, the apex grain line has to be in the middle, exactly the middle of the fold. You can pin over from the waist to one leg of the dart and from the PPGL to the other leg of the dart, so that the apex grain line is exactly in the middle, like that, okay? And check for any funky stuff. You see I have a bit of a wrinkle here? I need to lift this up, all right? That's not good. I need to raise it up and raise it up to eliminate that. See, it looks better? Right, so you always have to look at what you're doing. Once that's all set, then come up to the arm plate and put a pin. Okay, you're half done with the front. Then put a pin up at the neckline and center front. You should be able to see that your grain is, the cross grain is perpendicular to the neck seam and to the waist seam. So check it. You know enough about grain by now to see that. Then, once that's in place, cut 1 inch deep, 1 inch above the neck seam and 1 inch deep, and straight up to the top of the muslin. Most important clip is the first one. Clip straight down to the neck seam at the end of that 1 inch. And you can kind of feel where the seam is. You're clipping down to the seam. You need sharp scissors to do this. If you put your finger there, you won't cut beyond where you're supposed to. Okay? You need about 4 clips, 1/2 inch to 3/4 apart as you're coming around to the neck. Pin it at the high point shoulder. We're putting a dart in the middle. Usually the dart goes on the princess seam, all right? Usually that's halfway between. On some forms, the princess seam is off. So if you see it's too close to the neck or too close to the armhole, find the middle, all right? Or just use the seam. Then pin it at the shoulder, in the middle. Okay. Now, all right? So far, so good? Okay. Then, all this excess here gets lifted to the shoulder and becomes the shoulder dart. So again, make sure you got the arm plate pin in place. Then lift it, lift up, and let those meet there, okay? All right, there should not be, if there's too much in the armhole, you'll see a bubble. All right, so that's no good. If it's too tight, you'll see it straining. All right, you don't want to see too much of the body here. You just want to lift it up so it looks comfortable. And it meets. Again, legs of dart have to kiss and meet. So do it up at the shoulder too. The size of the dart depends on the size of your bust. The bigger the bust, the bigger the dart. So if yours is different than your neighbor's, don't worry, okay? That's it, I'm ready to mark it, all right? All right, so that's the look. Some of you 6 people who have a curvy form, you might have to take a slight horizontal pinch in the heart of the curve over the bust, and that's kind of at the level of the screw. If you find it too difficult to get it to look good up here, just try that technique. So it's a horizontal pinch right at the level of the screw. And that's usually the 6s that are very curvy, okay? But the rest of you should be able to lift it up and find it. All right. Truing, dotting, dot the neck, following the next seam of the form. Find the high point shoulder and mark it. At the dart, find the shoulder seam and leg one closest to center. Anytime you got a dart, you got to have both a horizontal and a vertical. So you match that side, flip it over, do the other side. Again. These two have to kiss and meet. Check. If you're not there, check move your pin, get it in the right spot. The end of the shoulder needs to be marked too. And then you dot the armhole ridge. Okay, so the ridge is not the metal plate. The ridge is like the edge of the shelf. If you had an arm, you would screw it in there. And it would touch against that. It's not the metal. All right? You dot on the front armhole ridge down to the level of the screw on the arm plate. When you get down to the level of the screw on the arm plate, mark the plate itself. Okay? At the arm plate inside, mark the underarm seam, underarm plate, and side seam intersection. This is a ruler line, so all you need is a spot at the top and a spot at the waist. Down here, and then dot your waist. Decide if you're going to mark the middle or the bottom of the tape. I usually mark toward the bottom, but you have to, it's really the groove of the form between the top and the bottom. So find it. And then dot your waist, dot, again, dart leg 1 needs a horizontal and a vertical. Dart leg 2 needs a horizontal and a vertical. And dot the rest of your waist. Okay? So let me check all my spots. So I've got my neck, my shoulder, my dart leg 1, dart leg 2, end of shoulder. Dot, dot, dot along the ridge down to the level of the screw. At the screw, also mark the plate. Mark the bottom of the arm plate. Mark the waist. Okay? That's it. Take this off to true it. All right? And then I just want to point out a couple of things about the lines on the form. They're not always accurate. The shoulder seam to the shoulder tip has to be in line with the middle of the screw. So check it and fix the shoulder tip if it's wrong. Okay? Usually the neck's okay. Same thing for the side seam. Take it from the middle of the screw down to the bottom and see that, and you can use a tape measure, usually works pretty well. Or something straight. Okay, so mine needed a correction, so that's why I'm using these pin marks as my side seam, not the form side seam. Okay? So now we're going to true what I just did with this basic bodice, and you're going to see it from the way I'm doing it. Okay, so now we're truing. We're going to start by truing the waist dart. Vanishing point is 1 inch down below bust level on the apex brain line. So go down 1 inch. And then check the space between the crossmark on the left and the right of the apex grain line. They have to be equally spaced. So you check the total. So let's say mine is 1.5, all right? That would mean I'd need 3/4 on this side of the line and 3/4 on this side of the line. So whatever your measurement is, make sure that it's equally spaced on either side of the line. So mine's what it is. And adjust it if need be. Don't change the fit, but just adjust it should you need. I had to adjust mine slightly, so I'm using the darker line. Then, this is a ruler line. For the waist dart, it's a ruler line. Connect the apex through the waist crossmark. Always have a sharp pencil when you're doing this and allow for thickness of pencil. Same thing here. Apex, pass through the spot where it touches the waist crossmark. Again, remember you have an intersection dart, you need a length, a vertical and a horizontal. Okay? The side seam here, this is the tight fit at the side. Okay, you should see that it crosses your arm plate, the +1/8 spot, and your waistline. All right, and just one shot down is the shape of this one. All right, like that. That's the tight fit. So label it so you know. Okay, it's not our final side seam, but it's our starting point. All right. Now, on this line, the armhole is going to be lowered 1 inch. So I can do that now, or I can, yeah, I'm going to lower that now, because I don't know if you can see my dots here. This is my initial dots on my armhole ridge, and this is my plate and ridge at the level of the screw. All right? So to true this, 1 inch down below plate for the front, place your French curve 1 time down. Catch the tip, the middle between the 2 marks at the level of the screw, and the lowered armhole so that it flows. You're going to ignore a lot of the dots at the top because they're going to change. So you don't have to make them very dark. Okay. And we're going to rough cut this armhole and check it. Now, the next part I have to true is the shoulder dart. Again, leg 1 is closest to center front. So find the crossmark on the shoulder and connect down all the way to the apex. Draw 1 line from there to there. And just like this dart is 1 inch shorter than apex, so is this one. So find your spot and then 1 inch up, and then draw the other leg of dart. Okay? There to there. Okay? Passing through the crossmark at the shoulder. Okay? Again, the size of the dart depends on the size of the bust. They're not all going to be the same. Then you're ready to pin it. You cup it at the end of the shoulder, at the end of the apex. Vanishing point to the dart. Because I can't draw the shoulder until I've pinned the dart. So cup it, stick your ruler inside like a table. Fold leg 1 closest to neck, center front, squeeze it, don't stretch it, and bring it over to meet leg 2. Don't worry if the cross marks at the shoulder are different. Just bring it over to its natural spot. Most important is line matches line, and then you pin. Try to do little bite. You can't see this, I bet. My hands are in the way. You'll catch it at the end. Little bite. 1/8 or less. Each pin works the best. And go right down to the vanishing point. Okay. And you can put, the last pin can be a vertical to help hold it in place. Okay, so that's that, right? Hi. Then you draw the shoulder, from the high point shoulder to the shoulder tip. 1 line, straight line in the front. All right? Oops, I'm a little off there. Let me fix that. If the pin is in the middle, pushes you off, fix it. Okay? Then add 1 inch seam allowance there at the shoulder. Okay? And now we can true the front. Now we can true the front. Okay, so now we're touring the neck. You follow, make sure you place your French curve like that. This is the shoulder, this is the center front. Squares off at the center front for about 1/4 inch, and one placement of French curve usually follows most of the dots. Then to make it wearable, go down 1/4 inch at center front, square off for about 1/4, 3/16, and then go in 1/8 at from the high point shoulder toward the armhole that way. And then place your French curve again, one time down, connect from the 1/8 to the 1/4, nothing less than an 1/8, nothing more than a 1/4, it gradually increases. Draw the real line. Okay, that's the red line. From the red line, add 1/2 inch seam allowance above it. Okay, so now I'm going to cut the shoulders 1 inch seam allowance. Your neck. Your dart's big, don't cut the dart. Okay. In the armhole area, I'm going to do a C cut, like here. All right, leave at least 1 inch in the armhole and just make a C around the screw part. Just makes it easier to drape when we put it back on. Okay, do not cut or do anything to the side, tight fit. Okay, come to the front waist dart, and if you remember, you can, okay, so we're pinning the waist dart. So cup, stick your ruler underneath like a table, fold leg 1, closest to center, squeeze it, don't stretch it, bring it over to exactly meet leg 2, and pin it from the waist up. If the waist marks don't match, don't worry, that'll come later. Pin it, pin small bite, 1/8 each bite. Pin in at the edge of the fold, come up. As you get to the top, a vertical pin may work the best. Okay, so now your front's done. So let's just look at it. So now turn this flat muslin to a dimensional one that fits your body. Okay, so again, leg 1/2 for the top dart, the shoulder dart, and leg 1/2 for the waist dart. All right, it's ready to put it back on the form. Okay, so back on the form, find the apex, pin it. You need to re-drape it on the form the way you did the first time. That's usually where you mess up, if you don't put it back on the same way you draped it. Oh, you did? Oh, excuse me. We're taping. Would you mind just... Thank you. Okay, so, all right, and I think we had a technological glitch. So our step here is to clip the neck, pin it at high point, on top of the front high point. Pin it at a pinch between neck and middle. Pin it at where the dart is on the front. Okay, and everything's following the front shoulder. Then lift up a 1/2 inch total for this dart, so 1/4 in the air. Lift up and pin. Just like the other darts, it has to kiss. And then another pinch. And again, I'm pinning everything on top of the front. And then pin at the shoulder tip on top of the front.
Maybe explain to do all of that before you start your neckline.
One more time, say it again.
Explain to the camera how to do the neckline, like do everything and then the neckline.
Like this?
Like you do the lines, you start with the middle, down, and the neckline is the last part.
Right. Okay, so, are you recording? Okay, so again, the shoulder blade was pinned level with the ease. PPGL brought straight down, take a pinch. Balance the side. The side edges, front and back, in this area right here, have to be parallel to each other. 2 pins, one by the plate, one by the waist. Then find your dart, following the chart we had for the skirt and other things. Then come up to the neck. 1 inch deep, 1 inch up, clip at the end of the 1 inch. Clip, clip, clip along the neck, pin, high point shoulder of the back on top of the front bodice, which is on the form. Pin, find a pinch in between neck and middle. Dart leg 1 matches dart leg 1 of front. Lift up so you got quarter, quarter in the air, 1/2 inch total. Pinch of ease between middle and end, pin. Ready to true, ready to dot, and then true, okay? So when you're dotting this, it's neck, following neck seam of the form. And if you see your front needs adjustment, this is the time, okay? And then again, I can't see, so if you can't see, lift it up. You can sort of crease it and do it right on top of the front. But it needs to be right on top of the front. As the darts in the front, a vertical and a horizontal to mark each one. Vertical and a horizontal to mark each one. Dot, dot, dot. Find the end of the shoulder. Dot on the armhole ridge up to the top. This middle section of the armhole is going to be a straight line.